Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in our lives when we realize that the constant noise, the endless demands, and the overwhelming expectations have become too much. It's in those moments when we might feel like we need to disappear. But I want to tell you, disappearing is not a failure. It is not an act of retreat, nor is it something to be ashamed of. Instead, it is a powerful and profound act of self-preservation, of reclaiming your soul. When we choose to step back and disappear, whether physically or emotionally, we are embracing one of the most vulnerable things we can do as human beings, to say, I need time for myself. This is not a statement of weakness, it's an invitation to rediscover the essence of who we are beneath the layers we've accumulated. It is in those quiet, often uncomfortable moments of being unseen that we hear the whisper of our true selves, far from the influence of expectations. We live in a world that tells us we must constantly show up, be present, perform. But what happens when we pause? What happens when we disappear for just a while to clear away the noise? In those still, silent moments, we find clarity. We find courage, we find peace. Reclaiming your space, your personal time, is not selfish. It is a radical act of self-love. We've been taught to think that disappearing means disappearing from our responsibilities, from the people we care about, from the roles we play. But in truth, disappearing can be the key to coming back with more purpose, more focus, and more alignment with who we are deep inside. But disappearing doesn't just mean physical absence, it means releasing the parts of ourselves that no longer serve us. We may disappear from a role that has defined us for years, from relationships that drain us, from obligations that wear us down. In letting go of what doesn't serve us, we create space for what matters most. The power of vulnerability lies in its ability to unlock our truest, most authentic selves. We live in a world that tells us to hide our weaknesses, to protect our perceived flaws, to maintain a perfect image at all costs. Vulnerability, however, is the opposite of perfection. It is about showing up as we truly are, without the filters, without the armor, without the walls that we build to protect ourselves from the world. When we choose to be vulnerable, we expose ourselves to the possibility of rejection, judgment, and failure. This exposure at first glance may feel terrifying. After all, it goes against everything we've been taught about strength. We've been conditioned to think that strength means being invulnerable, that true power lies in keeping our feelings hidden and managing the world from behind a mask. But real strength is found in the willingness to let go of that mask and to allow ourselves to be seen in our full humanity, imperfections and all. Vulnerability is not something we can turn on and off at will. It requires trust, and trust takes time to build. It takes courage to open ourselves up to the world without knowing what the response will be, to let down our defenses and show up in the rawness of our emotions. But this courage, the courage to be vulnerable, is where connection begins. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we allow others to do the same. It creates a space where we can share our deepest truths, our fears, our dreams, and our struggles. And in doing so, we create connections that are real, authentic, and meaningful. There is immense power in allowing ourselves to be imperfect, to not have it all together. It is in this place of imperfection where we experience our humanity in its purest form. When we stop pretending, when we stop performing for the approval of others, we become free. We become free to experience joy, to experience failure, to experience love in a way that is not contingent on anything external, but rooted in who we are at our core. But vulnerability is not just about exposing ourselves to others. It's about allowing ourselves to feel and to acknowledge the deep emotions we often avoid: fear, sadness, grief, disappointment. By sitting with these feelings, by facing them instead of running from them, we give ourselves permission to heal. We give ourselves permission to grow. The power of vulnerability is in its paradox. It seems counterintuitive, but the more we expose ourselves, the more we allow ourselves to be seen, the more we gain. We gain connection. We gain resilience. We gain the courage to continue moving forward in the face of uncertainty. And we gain the most important gift of all, the knowledge that we are enough, just as we are. Reclaiming our personal space is about more than just physical boundaries. It is about recognizing and honoring our inherent right to take up space in this world, to exist fully and unapologetically. For many of us, the idea of personal space has been distorted, shaped by the expectations of others, the demands of society, and the need to meet the needs of everyone around us. Over time, we've learned to shrink ourselves, to conform, to prioritize the comfort of others over our own well-being. We've been taught to give without realizing that we are emptying ourselves in the process. Reclaiming our space is the radical act of putting ourselves first, of saying, I matter, my time matters, my energy matters. It requires that we step away from the relentless cycle of self-sacrifice and permission-giving, to reestablish the boundaries that honor who we are, what we need, and what we are capable of. When we reclaim our personal space, we shift the narrative from living to please others to living to honor ourselves. It is about moving from a place of obligation to a place of conscious choice, where we no longer feel guilty for taking time to nurture ourselves, for creating room to breathe, for protecting our emotional and physical well-being. But reclaiming personal space is not an easy task. It requires confronting the discomfort of saying no when the world expects a yes. It requires challenging the deeply ingrained belief that our worth is determined by how much we give, and how much we can handle. It requires undoing years of conditioning that have told us that our needs come last and that prioritizing ourselves is selfish. In truth, the act of reclaiming space is an act of love, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. Only when we honor our own needs can we truly be there for others. This process is also about acknowledging that it is okay to take up space physically, emotionally, and mentally. Our thoughts, our feelings, our ideas deserve room to grow. Too often, we silence ourselves, afraid that our voices will be too loud or that our presence will be too much for others to handle. But reclaiming our personal space is the practice of finding the courage to stand tall, to express our truth, and to occupy the space we are meant to hold in this world. It is an acknowledgement that we don't have to shrink or apologize for our existence. It also means setting boundaries with the people in our lives. Our relationships should not drain us, they should nourish us. Reclaiming personal space requires us to be clear about what we need and to be firm about what we are no longer willing to accept. It may mean stepping away from toxic relationships, distancing ourselves from negative influences, and learning to say no to things that are not aligned with our values. Reclaiming personal space also involves learning to be with ourselves without distractions or the need for validation. It means finding moments of stillness where we can hear our own thoughts, feel our own feelings, and be in tune with our own needs. This space gives us the opportunity to reconnect with our inner selves, to rediscover who we are beneath the roles we play and the expectations we've internalized. In this process, we begin to trust ourselves again. We trust that we have the ability to create the kind of space that nurtures us. We trust that we deserve it and that our well-being is worth protecting. Reclaiming our space is a reminder that we are not obligated to fit into the molds that others have created for us. We are worthy of our own care, of our own time, and of our own peace. When we reclaim our personal space, we make room for the most important relationship we will ever have, the one we have with ourselves. And it is only when we truly honor and protect that space that we can show up fully in the world, strong, centered, and unapologetic about who we are. The gift of letting go is one of the most profound acts of self-compassion we can offer ourselves. It is an act that invites us to release what no longer serves us, to surrender the heavy burdens we've carried for too long. Letting go is not about forgetting or erasing parts of our lives. It is about making space for something new, something more aligned with who we are and who we are becoming. It is about honoring the parts of ourselves that we've outgrown and giving ourselves permission to move forward. We all carry baggage, whether it's the weight of past mistakes, old wounds, toxic relationships, or expectations we've internalized from others. Over time, this baggage accumulates, becoming part of our identity, part of the way we see the world and ourselves. We may not even realize how much of our energy is spent holding on to these things, but the truth is, holding on to what no longer serves us keeps us stuck. It keeps us tied to the past and prevents us from stepping into the fullness of the present. Letting go is the act of loosening our grip on these things, not because we want to forget them, but because we want to free ourselves. It's about accepting that we have carried these burdens for long enough and that we are no longer obligated to bear their weight. Letting go is not about abandoning the lessons we've learned or the experiences that have shaped us. It is about understanding that those lessons have been learned and that it's time to move forward. It is about choosing to create space for new opportunities, new experiences, and new growth. The process of letting go requires courage. It requires us to confront our fears, our doubts, and the attachments we form with people, places, and things that we believe define us. We may fear that if we let go, we will lose parts of ourselves or that we will never be whole again. But in reality, it is only through letting go that we can reclaim our wholeness. We are not meant to carry all of our past on our shoulders for the rest of our lives. We are meant to evolve, to change, to let go of the things that no longer support our growth. Letting go also means releasing the need for perfection. So much of our struggle comes from the desire to control every outcome, to maintain a sense of order and predictability in our lives. But the truth is, life is unpredictable. We cannot control everything, no matter how hard we try. And when we hold on too tightly to this need for control, we miss out on the beauty and potential of what is yet to come. Letting go invites us to embrace uncertainty, to surrender to the flow of life, and to trust that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. This act of letting go is also deeply tied to forgiveness, both forgiving others and forgiving ourselves. It is the recognition that holding on to resentment, anger, or guilt only harms us in the long run. When we let go of these emotions, we release their power over us. We make the choice to stop carrying the weight of the past, to stop allowing it to dictate our present. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning what happened. It means freeing ourselves from the hold that those past events have on our hearts. Letting go also involves redefining our relationship with control. Often we hold on to things because we fear the unknown, we fear loss, or we fear change. But control is an illusion. Letting go is about stepping into the unknown with trust in ourselves, in the process of life, and in the possibility of new beginnings. It is a reminder that sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is to release our need for certainty and allow life to unfold as it will. And while letting go can be painful, it is also deeply liberating. It opens up space for healing, for transformation, and for the creation of a future that is not bound by the past. It allows us to show up for ourselves with greater presence, with a sense of peace that comes from knowing we are no longer weighed down by what we have chosen to release. The gift of letting go is the gift of freedom. It is the freedom to live authentically, to make choices that align with our values, and to step fully into the person we are becoming. It is the freedom to move forward without the constant pull of what we have left behind. When we let go, we give ourselves the chance to truly live in the present moment, to embrace the fullness of life without the weight of unnecessary baggage. And in doing so, we create the space for new possibilities, new connections, and new experiences that will shape us into the person we are meant to be. Embracing stillness and silence is one of the most powerful acts we can undertake in a world that constantly demands our attention. We are conditioned to believe that noise equals productivity, that action equals progress, and that our value lies in how much we do. and how visible we are. But in reality, it is in the moments of stillness and silence where we reconnect with our most authentic selves, where we find clarity, creativity, and the courage to face the challenges ahead. Stillness and silence invite us to stop, to pause, and to listen, not just to the world around us, but to the world within us. In a society that celebrates constant movement and the never-ending pursuit of more, the quiet can be unsettling. We are often afraid of what we might find in the silence, the feelings, the thoughts, the doubts that we have pushed aside for far too long. But it is in this quiet space where healing begins, where growth takes root, and where our true essence comes into focus. When we allow ourselves to embrace stillness, we are giving ourselves permission to be fully present. We are choosing to be here, in this moment, without the distractions of what was, what might be, or what others expect of us. Stillness is not about escaping or avoiding, it is about allowing ourselves to be with what is. It is about giving ourselves the space to simply be, without the pressure to do or to perform. It is in this space that we can finally hear our own voice, separate from the noise of the world, separate from the opinions and expectations of others. Silence, too, has a profound power. In a world where we are constantly surrounded by chatter, whether it's the hum of technology, the constant flow of social media, or the expectations of others, silence can be a radical act of self-care. Silence allows us to tune into our own thoughts, our own emotions, and our own needs. It is in silence that we are able to process our feelings, to reflect on our experiences, and to gain a deeper understanding of ourselves. Silence invites us to step away from the external noise and to reconnect with our inner wisdom, which is often drowned out by the constant influx of information and distractions. But embracing stillness and silence is not always easy. It requires us to confront the discomfort that comes with being alone with our thoughts and feelings. We are often so accustomed to staying busy, to filling every moment with activity, that the idea of stillness can feel threatening. We might fear that in the silence we will be overwhelmed by our emotions, or that we will be faced with truths we aren't ready to confront. But this discomfort is not something to fear, it is a sign that we are being called to go deeper, to explore the parts of ourselves we have been avoiding. It is in facing this discomfort that we find our greatest growth. The beauty of stillness and silence lies in their ability to help us reconnect with what truly matters. When we slow down, when we create space for quiet, we open up the opportunity to reflect on our values, our goals, and our purpose. We are able to step away from the chaos of daily life and gain perspective on the things that truly bring us joy, fulfillment, and peace. In this space, we can reconnect with our passions, our creativity, and our sense of meaning. Stillness and silence give us the time and space to realign with our deepest truths. Moreover, when we embrace stillness, we embrace the practice of patience. We learn to trust that not everything needs to happen in the moment. Not every question needs to be answered immediately. Not every decision needs to be made in a rush. In stillness, we learn to trust the process, to allow things to unfold in their own time. We learn to be patient with ourselves, knowing that clarity will come when we are ready to receive it, that wisdom will emerge when we are open to it. In stillness, we also come to understand that we don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to control everything. Silence teaches us that we don't need to constantly seek validation or approval. We are enough as we are, right here in this moment, with no need to prove anything. When we sit in silence, we affirm our worth, not because of what we do or accomplish, but because we simply exist, and that is enough. Embracing stillness and silence allows us to move through the world with more intention and more presence. In the absence of constant noise and distraction, we are able to hear what matters most: our intuition, our values, and our desires. We are able to act from a place of alignment rather than reaction. Stillness gives us the clarity to make decisions that honor who we are becoming, and what we want from life. It frees us from the pressure to constantly do and instead invites us to just be, to fully experience the richness of the present moment. In embracing stillness and silence, we reclaim our power. We reclaim our time. We reclaim our ability to show up in this world with authenticity and purpose. It is in these quiet moments that we are reminded of the beauty and strength that reside within us, waiting to be tapped into when we are brave enough to be still, to listen, and to trust ourselves. Reappearing with purpose is about returning to the world from a place of clarity, strength, and intention. It's the decision to come back not out of obligation or fear, but out of a deep understanding of who you are and what you stand for. After periods of retreat, silence, or personal growth, reappearing with purpose is a powerful act of reclaiming our space in the world, but it's also about doing so with authenticity and a renewed sense of direction. It is an intentional choice to show up, not because we have to, but because we want to, because we are aligned with something greater than ourselves. When we take time away from the noise and distractions of everyday life, whether it's for rest, reflection, or healing, we give ourselves the opportunity to reconnect with our deepest truths. During this time, we shed the layers that no longer serve us, we redefine who we are, and we reflect on our experiences in a way that allows us to understand them more deeply. This process of internal transformation is often quiet, invisible to the outside world. But it is in these moments of quiet redefinition that we begin to understand what really matters to us, what brings us joy, and what our unique gifts are meant to contribute to the world. Reappearing with purpose requires courage, the courage to stand in the world once more, to share the lessons we've learned, to show the world the new version of ourselves that has emerged. We may fear judgment or rejection. We may question whether we are truly ready to be seen again. But this is the crux of reappearing with purpose. It is not about perfection, and it is certainly not about meeting others' expectations. It is about owning the journey we've taken, the growth we've experienced, and the truth we now hold. When we return, we do so not to perform, but to live authentically, to contribute in a way that feels meaningful and true to ourselves. This process of reappearing isn't a grand reveal. It's not about making a spectacle of our return or gaining approval. It's about quietly stepping back into our lives with a grounded sense of self, knowing that our presence is enough. We don't need to justify our absence or our journey. Our return is a declaration that we are here, we are whole, and we are ready to offer ourselves to the world in a way that is meaningful. Reappearing with purpose is about choosing to engage with life in a way that is conscious, intentional, and deeply aligned with our values. As we step back into the world, we do so with a clearer sense of what we need to protect and what we are willing to give. We have a more refined understanding of where we can show up fully and where we need to set boundaries. Reappearing with purpose means we don't rush back into the same patterns or obligations that once drained us. We return only to the things that matter, only to those spaces and relationships that align with our new sense of self. There is no rush to do more or to be more. We show up because we are ready, not because we feel pressured to fulfill someone else's vision of who we should be. When we reappear with purpose, we acknowledge the gifts of our absence. The time away has given us perspective, insight, and a renewed sense of clarity. We return not just to pick up where we left off, but to offer something more, something deeper, something more authentic. This is not a return to the past, but a re-engagement with life that honors the wisdom we've gained during our time away. We bring with us new knowledge, new understanding, and new energy, and we use these gifts to create a future that is more aligned with our true selves. This return is also about embracing the idea that we are constantly evolving. Reappearing with purpose acknowledges that we will continue to grow and change, that our journey is ongoing. It's an invitation to show up as we are right now, not as the version of ourselves we once were, or as the version others expect us to be, but as the most authentic version of who we are at this moment. We give ourselves permission to evolve in public, to be seen as we change and adapt. This is the true power of reappearing with purpose. It is the strength to embrace ourselves fully in all our forms as we continue to unfold. And while reappearing with purpose may feel vulnerable, it is in this vulnerability that we find connection. When we return to the world from a place of authenticity, we invite others to do the same. We create a space where it is safe to be ourselves, to acknowledge our journeys, and to share our growth. By reappearing with purpose, we set an example that we can all show up as our true and perfect selves and still contribute something meaningful to the world around us. Ultimately, reappearing with purpose is about living with intention. It's about choosing to re-engage with life on our own terms, with a clear sense of who we are and what we value. It is a conscious decision to offer ourselves to the world, not because we feel obligated, but because we are driven by purpose, clarity, and authenticity. This is not just a return to the world, but a return to ourselves, a reemergence rooted in the belief that we have something of value to offer, that we are enough as we are, and that our purpose is worth pursuing. In conclusion, embracing the journey of reappearing with purpose, letting go, embracing stillness, and reclaiming our personal space is not just about overcoming challenges, but about reconnecting with our true selves. Each of these acts is a declaration of our worth, our capacity to evolve, and our commitment to living authentically. The power lies in knowing that we do not need to seek external validation or approval, for we are enough just as we are. By showing up in the world with clarity, intention, and courage, we open the door to deeper connections and meaningful growth. Letting go of what no longer serves us, embracing moments of silence, and reclaiming our space allow us to live with purpose, to be seen in our vulnerability, and to move forward with confidence. The journey is ongoing, but by embracing these practices, we continue to shape a life that is truly our own.